Where I first started learning about the whole independent scene was I'm pretty sure it was the old Phil Donahue show. Larry Sharp was on there with
Oh,
Bam Bam Bigelow when Bigelow was just coming through the Monster
the main
Factory.
guy. Yeah, he was
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
and he was doing a talk show circuit, and there was like probably some situation going on with Vince, and they were referring to Larry, and Larry probably said, "Look, if I'm going to come on, I got to talk about the Monster Factory," and that's how I learned about going through wrestling school. So I was like, "Oh, all right, all right." So I always kept that in the back of my mind, and then I started learning there was like a little scene going on as well, and then around 1989, I really started hearing more and more about an independent wrestling scene. And my brother-in-law at the time was working for Haverford Township, and there was a local wrestler. We got a
Oh,
visit.
that's awesome. You planned this, didn't you? You got your shoulder cap.
he always pops on here when I do my interviews. It's fun.
That's awesome. That's ratings. Watch, all the girls below are commenting right now.
So there was a local wrestler who was at that point. He had gone through Larry Sharp's school, but he was with the TWA at the time, and I don't even know if I should to say his name at the time. The guy, he did some horrible stuff a couple years ago, and he's no longer with us. The Rockin' Rebel.
Yeah, yeah, good old
Yeah.
Chuck. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that I was introduced to, and he told me about Tri-State Wrestling Alliance and Joel Goodhart, and I went up and met Joel, and went up with some friends of mine, Frank Cody, and a couple other friends who did not get in the business, and we had our tryout for Joel.
Wow. Yeah, wow. And this is like what, like late 80s, early 90s?
This was summer of 1990.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think it was like July of 1990, and at that point we were in, just had to come up with uh, down payment, tuition, and all. I think that the deal was the school was 2,500 at that point, which it was 500 cheaper than the Monster Factory, and
That was
I
a
never.
lot of money for then, especially then. Like, like
Yeah, the crazy thing is, like, I hear about prices for wrestling school now, and for the most part,
they went down, right?
they've gone down. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy 30 years later. But I
Guess it's supply and demand, like this, there's so much competition, maybe that,
right, exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
and there's so many kids, or people in their 20s or whatever going through school now. It's so different than back then.
Oh,
So yeah, so they were getting ready for their big show at the Civic Center. Joe used
mm.
to run the Civic Center every 4 times a year, and September, I want to say the date was like September, I don't know, 18th or something. So I think I started my first day of wrestling school was September 20th, 1990, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I had to, get together. The way it worked was the down payment was if you came up with $1,000, your payments were like $75 a week. So
the more you put down, the cheaper it was.
yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at that point, I sold one of my guitars, and I sold my Marshall half stack, and got my down payment money together, and went in the wrestling world.